The sun hadn't fully risen yet. A low haze sat heavy over the cul-de-sac, washing the air in pale gray. The movers were already done. Boxes loaded, keys left on the counter. All that remained was silence. Alina stood barefoot in the driveway, gravel biting into her feet, a chill creeping up the hem of her cotton robe. One hand cradled her swollen belly. The other held the photo, the glossy 5x7 from their wedding day, where Victor had smiled like a man who believed in forever. Now, he was gone. Not in the way some men left. Not with yelling, not with slamming doors. No, Victor Langford exited like a businessman exiting a boardroom. Precise, clean, emotionless. He hadn't said goodbye to her face. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word and tell us where you're watching from. Just a white envelope tucked beside her prenatal vitamins. No signature, just her name, Alina, written in that same sharp ink he used to sign billion-dollar mergers. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper. You'll be fine. I've arranged for a settlement. Generous by legal standards. There's no need for conflict. I won't contest custody. This is best for both of us, V. No mention of the baby, no explanation. Just bullet points disguised as closure. Inside her chest, something cracked. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a dull fracture like ice under pressure. She wanted to scream, but her voice wouldn't come. Instead, her gaze drifted to the street. His sleek black Tesla had disappeared minutes ago. No tire marks, no hesitation at the turn. He never looked back. She blinked against the rising light, the edges of her vision blurry. In the photo, they stood on a cliff in Santorini, wind whipping through her veil. His hand was tight around her waist. Her smile was real then, back when he kissed her without agenda. Before she became a weight he no longer wished to carry. Soft kick from inside her belly brought her back. She looked down, whispering through clenched teeth. You still have me. I'm not going anywhere. A neighbor across the street peeked out, pretending to check her mail, clearly curious about the empty driveway. Alina stepped back inside. She wouldn't give them the show. The house smelled hollow, like boxes and finality. She made her way to the kitchen table, sat slowly, legs trembling from more than just pregnancy. On the table sat the settlement file. 6 figures, healthcare, a townhouse in Palo Alto. Victor had thought of everything, except decency. She picked up the pen, hovered over the signature line, then stopped. Her eyes caught the small sticky note he'd left on the folder. Keep the last name if you want. Langford carries weight in this town. That was Victor. Calculating. Even in abandonment she signed, not for him, for her daughter. A daughter who would never know what it was like to be held by him in the delivery room, who would never see her father waiting outside ballet practice or offering awkward teenage advice. A daughter who would never hear the word daddy without wondering why it felt so empty. Alina pressed her palm against her belly again. Layla, she whispered for the first time. Your name is Layla. She folded the photo and slipped it into the trash. Her hand hesitated, then pulled it back out. Not yet. There was still something she needed to remember. Something that would matter later. Not the man Victor was, but the man he chose to become, and one day maybe Layla would need to see it too. The front door clicked shut behind her. Tomorrow she'd call a lawyer. Today she'd start packing what little was truly hers. Outside, the morning fog began to lift, and somewhere far from that driveway, a tech empire continued to grow under Victor Langford's name, but he had no idea what had just been set in motion. Not yet. Before the goodbye, before the betrayal, there was a rooftop bar in Manhattan, and a man who seemed too sharp to be real. Alina had been 24, fresh out of grad school with a marketing degree and a folder full of unpaid internships. Her heels hurt. Her cheap wine buzzed her just enough to fake confidence, and she had laughed at something her friend said. Not because it was funny, but because it filled the silence of being overlooked. That's when Victor Langford noticed her. He wore a suit like it was tailored to his bones. Not flashy, just precise. Navy with a crisp white shirt, the kind of look that said CEO before anyone asked. When he walked over, even the air around him seemed to step aside. "You look like someone who doesn't belong here," he said smoothly, glass in hand. She bristled, unsure if it was an insult. "And you look like someone who owns the building," she shot back. He smirked. "I do." That was Victor. Direct, disarming, dangerous. They left the party within an hour. Their first dinner was at a private chef's apartment in Tribeca. Their second was on a jet to Toronto. Within 2 months, he'd replaced her Craigslist apartment with a penthouse rental and introduced her to rooms full of polished men who nodded at him like they owed him something. "I want you beside me," he'd said over oysters one night. Not behind me, never behind, but beside turned out to have conditions. At meetings, he asked her not to speak unless spoken to. When she wore a red dress to an awards event, he said, "You don't need to try so hard, let the wives wear red." When she cried once during a fight, in the first real fight, he blinked, leaned back, and said, "Are you trying to manipulate me? Don't do that." She told herself he was just intense, focused. Men like him didn't do soft. He never yelled. He corrected. He didn't get angry. He got disappointed. Still, he flew her to Paris on her birthday. He bought her a painting because she paused in front of it for 2 seconds. He made her feel chosen, and when he asked her to marry him in a villa, outside Florence there was a thunderstorm in the distance and the ring was the size of a small planet. She said yes, not because it felt like a fairy tale, but because it didn't feel like failure, because part of her believed love was supposed to be a transaction dressed as a promise. And Victor offered certainty, a luxury most women never got. She remembered telling her best friend, "Nobody marries for love, not really. You marry for safety, and Victor is the safest thing I've ever known." But even then, a part of her had flinched when she said it. A quiet part that already knew safety with Victor came with a price, and 5 years later, she'd pay it. The ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton shimmered with cold, expensive light, glass, chandeliers dripping above rows of investors, founders, and media. The annual Forbes Future Titans conference was Victor Langford's territory. He'd sat on panels here, mentored winners, bought out 2 of them. Today, he sat in the second row, a seat reserved with his name on a white card. Not on stage this time. Just an observer. He adjusted his cufflinks, bored. Then a name crackled through the speaker system. Next up, Layla Monroe, CEO of Halcyon AI. Victor didn't clap at first, not until the room did. He followed suit, fingers tapping against each other in mechanical rhythm. Then she stepped onto the stage. Young, confident, barely 19 maybe. Brown curls tied back in a low bun. Black blazer, simple flats, no jewelry. She walked like the room belonged to her. Victor leaned forward. She approached the podium, cleared her throat, and smiled. "I know what you're thinking," she said, voice crisp, carrying. 19 is too young, but intelligence doesn't wait for permission." The room chuckled. But Victor didn't smile. Something itched at the base of his spine. She launched into her pitch. An AI-powered mental health platform scaling faster than its competition, built off neural linguistics and biometric sentiment tracking. Impressive, even to him. But it wasn't the pitch that unsettled him. It was the cadence of her voice. The precise way she sliced her vowels. The way her chin tilted upward mid-sentence, proud but practiced. It was familiar. Victor sat frozen. He had never met Layla Monroe, and yet he had. The face wasn't exact, but the bone structure. The eyes, sharp, almond-shaped, even the dimple on the left cheek when she smiled under pressure. His mind raced. Monroe, not Langford. Still, something clawed at his gut. 19 years old, CEO, Bay Area-based. She clicked to the next slide, a photo of her development team. Young, scrappy, brilliant. In the corner of the slide, smaller and almost cropped out, a picture of her team's off-site picnic. A woman stood in the background holding a tray of lemonade. Victor's lungs stalled. Alina, older now. Her hair, longer, darker, but unmistakable. He blinked, swallowed, looked again, but the slide had changed. Layla kept talking, her words cutting clean through the room like glass. I built this because I watched someone close to me suffer in silence for too long. This platform is for the voices people ignore. Victor's jaw clenched. He didn't hear the rest of the speech, didn't notice the standing ovation, only realized the crowd had risen when the man beside him elbowed him to stand too. He clapped, slowly, then harder, then stopped. That name, that face. It wasn't possible. He sat back down as the next speaker took the stage. Around him, the crowd buzzed with excitement about the girl genius, but Victor didn't hear them. His thoughts were elsewhere, 2 decades back to a name in an envelope, back to a woman he thought he'd erased from his future. He reached for his phone, then paused. He didn't know what he was about to do, only that he had to do something. And this time, it couldn't be erased. Victor sat alone in the back seat of his car as the driver pulled onto the highway, the conference fading behind him. The leather interior was quiet, but his thoughts weren't. He stared at his phone, Layla Monroe. He typed the name into the search bar. Again, slower this time. Her company site came up. First, Halcyon AI, polished and modern. Headshots, press releases. Phrases like the future of emotional tech and youngest founder to secure Series B funding in under 6 months. But it was her bio that made his throat tighten. Layla Monroe, born in Petaluma, California, raised by her single mother, Alina Monroe. Victor's hand twitched. Alina Monroe. No mention of him, not even as a footnote. She had changed her last name. Or maybe it was her maiden name. He couldn't remember. Back then, everything had been paperwork and clean exits. He hadn't looked back. Not until now. He opened another tab, found an old community blog from Petaluma, grainy and small town but detailed. There was a photo. Alina seated beside a science fair poster with Layla M written in glitter letters. Layla looked about 11, braces, holding a robotics trophy almost half her size. Victor zoomed in. The girl had his eyes. He dropped the phone onto the seat beside him like it burned, then picked it back up and dialed. "Carla," he said when his assistant answered. "Yes, Mr. Langford? I need you to run a background profile. Layla Monroe, age 19, founder of Halcyon AI. Focus on anything involving her parentage, especially the mother, Alina Monroe. Find out where she lives, what she does, everything." There was a pause. "Yes, sir. Do you know her?" "No," he lied. "Just curious about competitors." "Understood. I'll begin immediately." He hung up, knuckles white against the phone. His reflection stared back from the window. Sharp suit, graying temples, jaw locked. He thought of the last time he saw Alina. Not even her face, just her back through the rearview mirror as he pulled away. No child in sight, no name, no consequences. He thought the money would be enough. He thought silence would erase everything. But now she had raised his child, molded her into a woman who stood on her own, with no help from him and no trace of his name. Why Monroe? Why not Langford? The question dug at him more than he expected. Victor prided himself on legacy, on control. But this girl, this Layla, had built something without him. From scratch. She wasn't a footnote in his story. He was a footnote in hers. The car slowed as they neared his building. He didn't move. Instead, he scrolled one more time, stopping at a recent article titled, "The Girl Who Doesn't Need a Father, Layla Monroe's Quiet Rise." He didn't click it. He didn't need to. The headline alone said everything. Alina stood in the back of the hall, just behind the last row of seats, unnoticed and perfectly content that way. Her coat was still on, damp at the shoulders from the San Francisco drizzle. She'd slipped in during the last 5 minutes of Layla's panel. just long enough to hear her daughter field questions like a seasoned veteran. Now, the audience filed out. Some stopped to whisper about the girl genius. Others pulled out phones for selfies, hoping for a glimpse of Layla Monroe. Alina didn't move. She watched as Layla walked off stage, flanked by her co-founders. Her stride was confident, controlled. She had no idea her mother had come, and that was the way it had always been. 17 years of sacrifice, of silence, of protecting Layla from the truth. Alina had built a life out of what Victor left behind. Not a glamorous one, but enough. She worked 2 jobs at first, mornings at a bookstore, evenings cleaning dental offices. She never cashed the full settlement at once, just enough to survive. Just enough to pretend she'd made it on her own. Somewhere along the way she had. Now, she taught business ethics at a community college. Quiet, stable work, a steady paycheck, no boardrooms, no men in suits with sharp smiles. She remembered the night Layla first asked about her father. It was a Tuesday. Layla had been 7. Her classmate had brought a dad to school for family day. Layla came home quiet, didn't touch her dinner. Alina was folding laundry when the question came. Was my daddy nice? Alina froze, sock in hand. Then forced a smile. He was smart, she said. But where is he? There was no version of the truth that didn't wound. So, Alina chose a softer fiction. There was an accident, she said gently. A long time ago, before you were born. Layla had blinked wide-eyed, then nodded, and never asked again. Alina told herself it was for the best. What could Victor possibly offer? He'd walked away before the first diaper, before the first word. He hadn't seen the way Layla lined up her cereal by color, or the night she cried herself to sleep after not making the robotics team. He'd missed every small moment that turned a child into a person. He didn't get to claim her now. Still, sometimes Alina wondered if the lie was a kindness or a theft. She'd seen Victor's name trending this morning, an investor at the same tech conference Layla was speaking at. She hadn't told Layla. What was the point? Layla didn't know him, and Victor had no reason to know Layla. Not unless Alina's breath caught. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Layla had texted just an hour earlier. Met Victor Langford today, he knew my name. Said we should talk again soon. You believe that? Alina's stomach turned. So he had seen her. And now, he was circling. She gripped the phone tighter. There was so much Layla didn't know, not just about who Victor was, but about what Alina had done to keep him away. The court filings, the uncashed checks, the letters returned unopened, the life built in the quiet shadows of a man who never came back. Alina slipped out of the hall before Layla saw her. She didn't want her daughter to look up and see fear in her face. Layla still believed her father was gone, and Alina had no idea what would happen when she found out he wasn't. The venue was minimalist, all concrete and glass, with Halcyon AI's logo projected onto the back wall in soft white light. Rows of chairs faced a sleek stage where journalists, venture capitalists, and influencers had gathered for the highly anticipated product launch. Victor didn't RSVP. He didn't have to. He slipped through the side entrance 10 minutes before. It began, no entourage, no press. Just a charcoal suit and a face everyone recognized, but no one dared interrupt. He positioned himself near the back, behind the last row of seats, standing in shadow, the same way Alina had just weeks earlier. Lights dimmed. A hush spread over the room. Then she appeared. Layla Monroe. She took the stage like she belonged there. Black turtleneck, dark jeans, hair pulled tight, not a hint of nervous energy. She began without preamble. "This isn't just a new product," she said, eyes scanning the room. "It's a new way of listening." Victor's jaw tightened. Her tone was surgical, her presence magnetic. Every sentence landed with authority, measured and clear. She didn't need charm. She had command. He couldn't take his eyes off her. She had his posture, his precision. Even the way she paced the stage reminded him of his early pitch days. But there was something else too, something that didn't come from him. Warmth. When she spoke about the users, her voice softened. She mentioned people dealing with grief, burnout, loneliness. She shared a story about a girl who used the beta version after losing her mother to cancer. Victor blinked. Emotion, not weakness. Depth. He couldn't remember the last time he spoke like that in public, if ever, and the crowd was eating it up. Cameras flashed. Investors nodded. Notes scribbled. There were smiles in the audience that bordered on reverence. Layla was not just the founder, she was the product. He shifted his weight, arms crossed tightly. This wasn't just admiration anymore. It was hunger, a daughter he hadn't shaped, who was somehow everything he'd wanted his name to represent. But she didn't carry his name. She was a Monroe. He clenched his jaw as applause erupted. Layla stepped back, let her CTO explain the live demo. She stood off to the side, arms folded, proud but composed. Victor took out his phone and zoomed in, snapping a quiet photo. He stared at it, not to keep, to study. In her face he saw reflections of the past, the way Alina used to stand at his side during interviews, just out of frame. The same fire. But this was evolution. Layla wasn't his version of ambition. She was her own. The audience rose for a standing ovation. Victor stayed back, blending in with the murmurs and movement. Layla shook hands on stage. He noted how naturally people gravitated toward her. She didn't need help, but she deserved guidance. His guidance. That was the part Alina could never give her. As the crowd thinned, he moved closer. Not to approach. Not yet. Just to see her. Up close. She laughed at something someone said, brushing her curls behind one ear. And in that split second, she glanced toward the far side of the room. Their eyes met. Only for a second. Her smile didn't fade. She didn't recognize him. But Victor smiled back. Small. Knowing. He wasn't finished watching. This was only the beginning. Layla had only just sat down with her oat milk latte when she saw him. As if by coincidence. As if the universe was handing her a career-defining moment wrapped in caffeine and fate. Victor Langford. He wore a slate gray suit with no tie, crisp as ever, and held a small black coffee in one hand, phone in the other. When their eyes met, he offered a surprised smile, the kind crafted carefully over years of boardrooms and back-channel deals. "Miss Monroe," he said, stepping toward her table. "Didn't expect to see you here." Layla blinked, flustered. "Mr. Langford, hi, wow, hi." He gestured subtly. "Mind if I join you?" "Please." He sat, and for a moment, the coffee shop around them became background noise. Students on laptops, quiet jazz overhead, baristas calling out orders. All of it faded behind the surreal presence of a tech giant sitting across from her. "Your launch was impressive," Victor said, taking a slow sip. Controlled, confident. "You reminded me of someone I used to know." Layla smiled, unsure how to respond. "That means a lot. I grew up watching your keynote videos." He laughed softly. "I hope I didn't ruin your childhood." "Not at all. You made tech feel like theater." Victor's eyes twitched. The resemblance in her laugh was uncanny. Her timing, even her mannerisms. It wasn't just coincidence. It was blood. He leaned in slightly. "What drives you, Layla? Really? The AI, the interface, that's just surface. What's underneath?" Layla tilted her head. "Honestly, I wanted to create something that didn't talk at people. Something that actually listened." She hesitated, fingers wrapping around her cup. "My mom raised me alone. She used to work night shifts and come home too tired to talk. I think I just grew up needing to be heard." Victor nodded, lips pressed thin. So Alina really did keep it all from her. "She must be proud," he said carefully. Layla's face softened. "She is. She tries not to show it, but she cried the first time she saw me on a panel. Victor smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He didn't know whether to feel grateful or resentful. Alina had raised her beautifully, but without him. He wanted to be angry, but sitting here with Layla's unfiltered admiration pouring across the table, all he could feel was longing. And something worse. Guilt. He forced himself to stay and roll. "You know," he said, "there's space in my firm for a partnership. Mentorship. Halcyon has sharp edges and the market's watching you now. I could help." Layla looked intrigued. "You'd invest?" "Maybe," he said slowly. "Or maybe I just want to be part of the next great mind before the world gets its claws in her." She laughed. "I think the world already has a few. In me." Victor smiled again, hiding the weight of what he wasn't saying. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was the reason she grew up without a father. That her company, her independence, all of it was built in the vacuum of his absence. He wanted to say he was sorry, but he didn't, because the version of himself sitting here, calm, reformed, admiring, that's who he wanted her to see. That's who she deserved to see. Layla checked her watch. "I've got to run, but thank you, really." He stood with her. "Let's talk again, soon." As she left, he watched her go. Her stride, her silhouette, the quiet strength in her shoulders. She didn't know him, but he knew her. The sound of keys in the front door stirred Alina from her grating. She looked up from a stack of ethics essays just as Layla stepped into the apartment, cheeks pink from the cold, scarf half unraveled. "Hey," Layla said, dropping her bag by the door. "You won't believe who I had coffee with today." Alina raised an eyebrow, amused. "Who? Elon Musk?" "Close." Layla grinned and tossed a small white business card onto the counter between them. "Victor Langford." Alina froze. The name sat there, sharp and quiet, printed in clean serif font with a discreet email and no phone number. Just Victor Langford. No company name. No tagline. Layla didn't notice her mother's silence. She'd already moved to the kitchen, grabbing a yogurt from the fridge. He just happened to be at the cafe, total coincidence. "We talked for almost an hour. He said I remind him of someone." She smiled, scooping a spoonful. "He's actually kind of charming, in that intense shark-like way." Alina's throat closed. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the card. Her thumb ran over the raised letters like they might burn her. It had been nearly 2 decades since she saw his name printed that way. Not on a screen, but real, in hand. The last time had been on hospital paperwork when she listed herself as the sole parent. The betrayal hit her again like a ghost slamming through the walls. The empty delivery room, the unpaid bills, the nights Layla cried with fever and no one to hold her but Alina. The mornings she left her sleeping daughter with a neighbor so she could mop floors before class. Victor Langford had erased them, and now, here he was, handing her daughter a business card like he earned the right to know her. Alina sat down slowly, heart pounding. "Mom." Layla looked up, noticing her face. "Are you okay?" Alina forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." Layla walked over and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, he's not trying to poach me or anything." He offered advice. "Maybe investment, it was just a meeting." Alina nodded, but her jaw was tight. "Did you give him your number?" "Email." "And did you tell him about me?" Layla blinked. "No. Should I have?" Alina hesitated. "No, of course not." But inside something shifted. A coil of dread wrapped around her spine. Victor hadn't reached out to her. He hadn't called. He'd gone straight to Layla. That wasn't curiosity. That was strategy. When Layla went to shower, Alina stayed at the table, staring at the card. She thought about throwing it away. She thought about telling Layla the truth, all of it. But her daughter's face, so full of admiration and independence, made her hesitate. There was only one thing she knew for certain. This time, Victor wasn't going to ghost through their lives unnoticed. This time she would be the one knocking on his door. Alina reached for her phone, opened her email, and typed in the address on the card. Subject: We need to talk. She hovered over send, then clicked. The restaurant was upscale but quiet, the kind of place where privacy was implied and power wore cufflinks. Victor arrived first. He sat at the back corner table, a bottle of wine already breathing, between two empty glasses. His watch glinted every time he checked it, though his face remained unreadable. At exactly 7 p.m., Alina walked in. She wore a dark navy blouse, no jewelry. Her expression was calm, almost neutral, but her eyes, those had fire. Not rage, not grief. Just the unwavering focus of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Victor stood as she approached, polite to the point of insult. "Alina," he said, softly, nodding. "Victor." They sat. She declined the wine, ordered tea instead. He tried to ease into it. "I have to say I was surprised to hear from you. After all these years." "This isn't about us," she interrupted. "It's about Layla," he smirked. "Impressive, isn't she? You did well." Alina didn't smile. Instead, she pulled a worn folder from her tote and laid it flat on the table between them. Victor glanced down. Photos spilled out. A newborn wrapped in a hospital blanket, a copy of a birth certificate, a faded letter addressed to Victor Langford, postmarked from 2007. Unopened. "I kept the receipts," Alina said quietly. "All of them. The hospital bills, the childcare invoices, the cease and desist your lawyer sent when I tried to reach out 5 years later." Victor picked up one of the photos. Layla, maybe 2 years old, wide-eyed and clutching a toy. He stared at it, lips slightly parted. "You could have come back," Alina said. "Even once. You had the address." Victor exhaled. "I thought it was better for everyone." "No, it was better for you." He didn't respond. His fingers tapped the edge of the table, a nervous tick she remembered from long ago. "You built a life," she continued. "Boardrooms, IPOs, mistresses probably, but not once did you wonder what became of the child you left behind." "I did," he said quickly. "Of course I did." "Then why now? Why her? Why suddenly show up at a cafe like a wandering mentor?" He paused, then said, "Because she's brilliant. She's everything I wish I'd been at that age." Alina leaned forward. "You don't get to love the outcome of the daughter you abandoned." That landed. Victor's jaw flexed. His calm wavered. "Just enough. She doesn't know," he said. "No. And she won't. Not from you." Victor looked up, eyes sharp. "You don't get to make that decision." Alina met his gaze. "But I did. 18 years ago. And every day since." Silence settled between them. Not awkward, electric. Then she pulled out one last thing. A folded drawing on old construction paper. A child's handwriting read "Me and Mommy and Daddy" under 3 stick figures. One of them had no face. "She made this in kindergarten," Alina whispered. "Back when she still imagined you were real." Victor stared at it. Something inside him cracked, not loudly, just enough to be felt. "I didn't know how to stay," he said, voice low. "You never tried." She stood, gathering the folder. "I didn't come here for money or apology," Alina said. "I came to warn you. Whatever fantasy you've built in your head about swooping in now, forget it. She's not yours to mold. She never was." Victor didn't move. He just sat there, the wine untouched, the past laid bare on white linen, and Alina walked away, leaving only silence in her wake. Layla sat at the head of the Halcyon conference table, sleeves rolled, fingers drumming. Her co-founders had left hours ago, but she stayed, alone with spreadsheets and silence. An email notification blinked on her laptop screen. Subject: "Let's make it official." From Victor Langford. Layla. "I've spoken with your team. I'm prepared to commit $10 million in Series B funding. No strings, just belief. Let's discuss next steps." She leaned back in her chair staring at the message. No strings. She wasn't naive. When Victor Langford made an offer, it was never just business. He was strategic, calculated. But ever since that chance coffee meeting, he'd acted like more than an investor, like he knew her, like he was waiting for something. The weird part? She didn't mind it. She liked the way he listened, the subtle pride in his eyes when she spoke. She didn't have that with anyone, except her mother, who hadn't said a word since Layla told her about Victor's offer 3 days ago. Not a warning, not a question. Just that tight-lipped silence Alina used to wear when Layla brought home bad grades or made friends she didn't trust. Tonight, Layla had had enough. She stepped into their apartment just past 9, dropping her bag on the floor louder than necessary. "Hey," she called. "You have a minute?" Alina looked up from the couch, her face already guarded. Layla held up her phone. He offered $10 million. No board seat, just capital and mentorship. "Why do you look like I told you I'm joining a cult?" Alina sighed, setting her tea aside. "Because that man doesn't do anything without expecting leverage." "Yeah. Well, most VCs don't. That's not new." Alina hesitated. Layla crossed her arms. "Okay. What is going on?" There was a long pause, the kind that dripped with consequences. Then Alina stood and walked to the bookshelf. She pulled down a worn file, the same one she'd carried to dinner with Victor, and held it out. "What is this?" Layla asked. "Open it." Inside documents, court letters, a hospital receipt, a faded birth certificate, and tucked between them, a wedding photo, her mother young, happy. Beside a man in a tailored suit, Layla stared. Her voice cracked. "Is that—" "Yes," Alina said softly. "That's Victor. Your father." The room tilted. "No, that can't be." Alina didn't move. "He left before you were born. Walked away and never looked back. I told you he died because I thought it would be easier than telling you the truth." Layla's mind raced. The coffee shop meeting, the compliments, the way he looked at her like he knew something she didn't. "He knew," she whispered. Alina nodded. "He saw your name, and now he wants in. Not because he's proud of you, because you're useful." Layla backed away. "So all this time, you lied. I protected you." "No, you controlled me." The words hung heavy between them. Alina's face faltered. "I did what I had to do." Layla turned toward the door. "I need some air." "Layla." But she was already gone. Outside, the night was cold. The city hummed, and Layla stood on the edge of a truth she hadn't asked for, her life suddenly rewritten with a single name: Victor Langford, investor, mentor, father. She pulled out her phone and opened the email again. She didn't reply. Not yet, but she didn't delete it either. Layla sat on the bathroom floor, knees to her chest, the DNA envelope crumpled beside her. She'd read it 3 times, but the words hadn't changed. Probability of paternity: 98%. Victor Langford is the biological father. No noise came out. Not a scream. Not a sob. Just silence. The kind that settles in your bones when your life splits clean down the middle. For 2 weeks after that awful night with her mother, Layla had spiraled through questions. Had she imagined Victor's strange familiarity? The way he smiled like he was seeing something he'd lost? She thought it was mentorship. Now she knew it was possession. She hadn't told Alina about the test. Couldn't bear to see that tight, composed face again. Couldn't hear another defense of "I did what I had to do." And Victor? His silence since the funding offer spoke louder than any truth. He'd known. From the first meeting. He saw himself in her and decided to claim it, without asking. But he hadn't come for her. He came for her company. Because 3 nights ago, Layla had been digging through Halcyon's back-end architecture to prepare for a due diligence review, when something jumped out, a module, buried in a deprecated branch of their codebase. a string sequence suspiciously similar to a Langford Systems prototype from 5 years ago. One she'd seen in an academic white paper Victor published before disappearing it behind a patent wall. She didn't know how it got there. A rogue developer? A recycled codebase from one of their early contractors? It didn't matter. Because now it looked like Halcyon had stolen IP, and Victor knew it. That's why he approached her, to own it before it became a problem. Layla stood and stared at herself in the mirror. Eyes bloodshot, shirt inside out. She looked like a stranger inside her own skin. By morning, her decision was made. In a quiet law office downtown, Layla sat across from a startup litigator and said, with eerie calm, "I want to file an emergency injunction against Langford Systems. Cease and desist. Pending investigation for IP entrapment." The lawyer blinked. "You're going after Victor Langford?" "I'm protecting my company. He knew our code had overlap and tried to buy silence, disguised as support. You understand this could go public?" She nodded. "Let it." The paperwork was filed that afternoon. By evening, she'd cut off access to all external parties, changed her phone number, sent a terse email to her mother. "You lied. He lied. I need space. Please don't contact me right now." No sign-off. No warmth. Alina didn't reply. Victor did. Subject: "We should talk. I never meant to manipulate you. I was trying to figure out how to make it right. Please let me explain." She didn't respond. Instead, she forwarded the email to her legal team. That night, Layla sat in her office alone, the city blinking outside her window like it didn't care what fell apart beneath its lights. She pulled the DNA result from her bag and placed it in her desk drawer, locked it, swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't know what hurt more, the truth or how quietly it had waited for her to find it. Either way, it was hers now. So was everything that came next. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. 3 months later, Victor Langford stood behind a podium in a darkened boardroom, cameras flashing like insects. The air was sterile with rehearsed statements and silent exits. Reporters filled the back rows, notepads ready. Screens behind him bore the logo of Langford Systems, clean, sharp, corporate blue. Soon someone else's name would replace his. "I'm stepping down effective immediately," he said, voice even. "Not because I was forced to, but because it's time." He didn't elaborate, didn't mention the injunction, the internal audit, the discovery of unethical code-sharing practices between Langford's former R&D team and an early Halcyon contractor. He didn't mention the whistleblower report Layla submitted, signed with her full name, Layla Monroe. The scandal had gutted him quietly. No handcuffs, no courtrooms, just headlines, eroded trust, and a fall from grace that came not with noise, but with silence from people who once called him irreplaceable. That night, his name trended for the first time in weeks. Langford resigns. Halcyon over honor. Legacy. Concerned Victor didn't read the comments. Across town, in a modest glass building lit with warm LED strips, Alina adjusted a banner outside the lobby. The Monroe Women's Fund, a startup grant and mentorship program for first-time women founders. The plaque beneath read, "In honor of every woman who built something from nothing." The fund was modest, but it was hers. She no longer taught night classes, she no longer had to. She kept her phone nearby, always hoping for a text from Layla. Most days it didn't come. Some days it did. Short messages, status updates, press tour went well. Hiring new CTO? Thinking of you today. No apologies, no unpacking. Just quiet threads tying them together, frayed, but not broken. Alina accepted them with grace. She'd carried Layla for 9 months. She could wait 9 more, if that's what it took. And Layla? Layla thrived. Halcyon AI went global. Investors flooded in, not just because of the tech, but because of the woman behind it. She no longer smiled as wide on stage. Her warmth had cooled, replaced by precision. She spoke with command, not charm. She didn't need charm. She'd learned the difference between admiration and manipulation, and she never forgot who taught her. In a rare interview with TechLine Weekly, she said, "I'm not building a company. I'm building a firewall between the future I believe in and the legacy that tried to own it." The quote went viral. Late one night, Victor sat in his penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The lights outside flickered through the haze. He sipped whiskey he didn't taste, phone dark beside him. A massive screen across Times Square cycled through digital ads. Then it landed on her. Layla Monroe, Time's Innovator of the Year. Her image, blown sky high, crisp blazer, chin raised, eyes unwavering. She looked exactly like him, the eyes, the shape of the jaw, but colder, stronger, untouchable. Victor leaned forward, elbow on his knee. His empire was gone. His name, diminished. His daughter, unclaimed by legacy, yet unmistakably his. He whispered aloud, "I gave her nothing." And somehow she became everything. He should have felt proud, but pride required closeness, and she had made sure he stayed far. On her rise, she didn't look back, didn't call, didn't offer a second coffee. She didn't need to. Forgiveness wasn't part of her story. She had inherited his eyes, but none of his excuses. And as her face lit up the skyline, Victor finally understood. Legacy isn't what you build. It's what survives without you.